If Aaron, okay,
Aaron
if
is
we,
definitely the spider in the corner.
yes, exactly. So if we were Wizard of Oz, he would be Oz behind the curtain, right? Trying to make sure that everything's okay. But then he steps out from behind the curtain and you're like, get out of here. Like you're not even you're not hulking. Like what are we doing right now? What are we doing, man?
It's like when you find out the Wicked Witch of the West can get like be defeated with the Dasani. You're like, oh girl, really?
That's right. Like, all the venom is kind of taken out. But nah, that's my guy. That's my guy.
Hey everybody, it's Ray, and you are listening to Aaron's Scratch That, Teddy's Scratch That, Ray's Untitled Interviews. So the reason why you're hearing my voice instead of Aaron or Teddy's is because I have the opportunity to interview the man himself. Now, you may know him from the Why Not podcast, which has recently brought itself over to the Black Astronauts podcast. You might know him from his silky baritone. You might know him from the slight and simple shade that just slides his way in that you don't really catch unless you're really, really listening. Okay. But I know him as one of my theoretically favorite people on the Black Astronauts podcast, Teddy.
What's up? Look at that, man.
Was that good?
That's a hell of an intro. Yeah, appreciate it. I don't even know what to do right now. That's good.
I thank you. I try. You give good intros, so I felt like I had to,
Yeah.
I was working on that one in the car, actually.
Yeah, that's what King Problematic Steve Harvey taught me way back in the Kings of Comedy. So yeah.
Okay.
I try to keep it going.
Well, anyway, thanks for being interviewed today. I'm excited to get into this because I feel like you've been on the podcast network for a really long time, but people don't really know a lot about you, and I don't know, how much people, if they listen to the Why Not podcast network before it came over to the Black Astronauts podcast, which if you have not, get on it. But Teddy, you've been podcasting for how long?
Oh man, going on 4 years, which it doesn't seem like that long, but yeah, it's been going on 4 years.
Right. And so I don't know if you guys know this, if you listen to my Untitled interview, but one of the things that me and Teddy have in common is that we're both like huge podcast fans. Me and him, we trade podcast recommendations every once in a while. And so what I'm going to ask you this because this is one question I like to ask a lot of people. What is like your podcast origin story? What was the first podcast that you ever listened to?
Oh man. You know what? That's funny. I can tell you quick off the top of my head that the first radio show that I really got into was the Dan Patrick Show for sports radio. And you know what? Here's the answer. The first podcast was from another sports show, and that is the Tony Kornheiser Show. And he's one half of the PTI, Pardon the Interruption group that comes on ESPN. So I enjoyed the show because it was a different take on sports, which was he didn't talk about sports a lot. It was more of a general talking podcast, and I liked the format. I liked the idea of sitting around and hearing something different than, here's who's going to play on Sunday and here's the line. Like, that's kind of boring at times. Mm-hmm. So, when you can get into politics, you can get into everyday life, your family life, whatever it is, that's the stuff that drew me in as a listener. And after a while, though, he's still, even though he's liberal, from New York, politically we're very similar, but he's still an older white dude.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
So he has moments where I'm just like, Jesus, I really can't get into what you're saying. And that one of those moments sparked me into searching for more black podcasts, I'm like, there has to be more. And at the time I didn't have an iPhone, so I had to go on my computer to search for it. and I think I just started searching for black. Like that was my creative Google search on.
Too.
You know what I mean? So, but from that, ironically, I mean, the Black Guy Who Tips was on there, and of course, Black Astronauts was one of the first ones. I really got into BAP early, and then from that, the Valentine Cast. And the Valentine Cast is a show based out of Louisville, Kentucky, with JJ and Renee Valentine. And funny story is, I didn't know they were in Louisville, but after a while, they kept on dropping these Louisville hints, and then I realized that I grew up with Renee, and our mothers were very close friends. So I'm like, oh man, that's the plug, you know. So Jay and I started talking. Jay was cool with Aaron, and it turns out that I was already listening to Black Astronauts. So I'm like, yo, that's crazy. Not only can I meet my favorite podcaster, we worked at the same places, and he was 2 floors below me.
Shut up.
Yeah,
That's
man.
cool.
That's how Aaron and I first got to know each other. And I was picking he and JJ's brain all the time for, different ideas. Here's what I want to do. Here's the mic I like. Here's my format. And after a while, Jay was just like, man, just call me. Don't quit emailing me on my work stuff. I was like, all right, cool. And sure enough, I started the show, and they were probably my second guest on the show, actually. So, yeah, man, I always give them props. But other than that, though, the Black Is Network is another one that stood out to me. They had 2 shows at the time: The Break, which was like a general discussion format amongst 6 to 8 friends, and the other one is the Brothers Lehman Sports Happy Hour. And from that, listening to that show, that was the first Black sports podcast I got into. I reached out to one of the hosts, who's Jonathan Lehman, who now co-hosts 3/5 of a Podcast with me. And I mean, it's crazy to think, even though we haven't all met in person, the actual bond that we have amongst each other just from talking as much as we do, and you genuinely care about these people, and you enjoy listening as just a straight up listener if I'd never had a chance to speak to them. So
Yeah, that's an interesting story. I actually never knew that you and Aaron worked near each other. That's the fun little tidbit. So what did you think when you saw him, or did you see him before and was like, look at this?
All right, you know what? So let me let me tell the story, because Aaron tells a very different story than I do, right?
Okay.
So I hadn't made the connection with Jay that I knew him yet, but I was down in the cafeteria line. And before anybody listening judges me, just know that, way back when I went to a school by the name of Full, Fullsail, Full Sail, in Orlando, Florida. And it was based in audio engineering. So, if you're not familiar with that, whenever you hear a song and in the beginning they're just like, yo, turn me up in the headphones, that's audio engineering. And so you have to listen for certain things, and you kind of get a trained ear, all the good stuff. So I worked in that a little bit after college, and then, I was tired of being broke, so that's when I got a real job.
Right.
So I give that as as an explanation for what I'm about to say. I was downstairs in the work cafeteria, and I would mention the place, but Jay still works there, so I'm not going to mention the place. But we were in this place, and, I heard somebody ordering a coffee, and I'm like, I know that voice. And he said something else, and I went up to him. I'm like, hey, Jay Valentine? And the look he gave me, I'd never seen a black man give that look, because it's the same look that a white woman would give me when I walked on the elevator and it was just she and I. You know what I'm saying? The look of pure fear that he had.
I was going to say the cat, when the cat has a canary in its mouth, it's like,
I was like, so, automatically I went into safe brother mode. I was like, no. I just, I thought that was you. And, we started laughing, and I tried to apologize for being creepy, and I bought his coffee. And looking back, that may have been even more creepy, but whatever, So
yeah, a little bit.
But yeah, so from that, he said, Aaron works here. I was like, word. And I listened to the show. I knew he was a Sigma. So randomly, I was outside, and I forgot why I was outside, but this dude walked past me, And, you know, he was like, you know, 5'3" or something like that. And he had this big Sigma jacket on. And I'm like, man, nobody else is in this workplace repping as hard as that. So sure enough, that was Aaron, and then we met shortly thereafter. So yeah, that's how I met Aaron B.
So you were listening to podcasts. So what made you decide to what made you say to yourself, like, I want to start a podcast and do it myself? Because I know I listened to podcasts for years before I was convinced to, join up.
So I was shook, man. I was very, very shook. What gave me the confidence to actually start was the fact that the Why Not podcast wasn't my first podcast. My first podcast was the family podcast, and the premise was simply, my family is all over the country. So, most of us are in Alabama. Shout out to Birmingham, Bessemer, Brighton, Montgomery, and a couple of different places. But we got family there, Florida, California, and those are the main. Chicago too, but we just don't get together like we used to when our grandmother was alive. So when we were kids and our grandmother was alive, we would all find excuses to just come together at least once a year in Birmingham and chill together. So it had been years. We've gotten married, jobs, graduated, have kids, mortgages, and we just didn't keep in contact like we used to. So my idea was start a podcast, and from that podcast interview a member of the family, and ultimately at the end of the season we can have like a family reunion, do a live show, something like that, right? So that's why whenever I start my show, I always start it with family. It's a nod to my family that I started the podcast for. And that was me kind of dipping my toe in there. The problem is I gave too much credit to my family that they would be aware of podcasting because they just weren't, you know what I mean? So I would send them the link, I would explain how to listen, I would tell them what to do, but ultimately nobody would listen. Nobody would listen, right? I'm doing a whole show to try to bring unity to our bloodline, and they just refuse to listen. So,
and niggas just nig.
You know what I'm saying?
They just nigged all over your project.
So that forced me to find another avenue, and I wanted to do something that was a much broader format, like the Why Not, and I couldn't think of a name for it. So the first time that I started out, it was me and my two best friends. We were going to do a 3-person show, but scheduling, one of them had just had their first son. Microphones, I had like the one microphone that we were all trying to talk around, so my equipment was bad. And then they hadn't listened to podcasts, so they didn't know all the nuance that I was trying to explain to them, and it just didn't work. So finally I was just like, man, I gotta kind of pull an Eminem on 8 Mile, like, yo, I think I gotta do this on my own, yo. And
you did the Beyonce and went solo.
You know what I mean? Like before the success, yeah. So, that's why I named the podcast Why Not, because I had so much doubt. It took 6 months and like about 6 or 7 test shows before I even released one, and I still listened to that one and I cringed because of the sound. Yeah. But I just had to do it, man. So
I feel you.
Yeah.
I relate to that first story about the 7 test shows, because that's actually what I thought that we were going to do when we started Houston. We have a problem. The first time that that me and Lloyd recorded with Aaron, I had no idea that was going to go out. So, we were just bullshitting and chit chatting or whatever, and like just a test show just to see, and get everything together. Next thing I know, I'm getting a notification.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey,
like, wait, what?
Right. So, that's definitely something. So one thing that people will notice if they listen to the Why Not podcast or in general is that you are very, very into the podcasting scene in different cities. You're actually, I've seen around the internets, regarded as the Podfather.
I hate that nickname too.
Oh.
But yeah.
Well, would you prefer Fairy Podfather?
It's even better.
Great. The Fairy Podfather of Louisville. So what exactly, what's your motivation behind trying to put Louisville's name on the map as far as a podcasting place? Because, when you listen to podcasts, people are from all over, but there are, of course, the major metropolitan cities like New York and California and stuff like that. So why, obviously why you want to have Louisville, but what's your motivation behind pushing Louisville?
Well, I just think that collectively we're so much stronger. Shout out to Soul Food, right? The grandmother. Five fingers spread apart strikes a blow, but when they're wrapped together, you can make a
strike a mighty blow.
Yeah, strike a mighty blow with the fist, right? I butchered it, but you get it, right? But I guess that one of my frustrations when I started, aside from Aaron and Jay, is I just didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know who to ask, and I had a million questions. We mentioned the doubt. You know what I mean? Like, people think I'm going crazy because I want to just talk in a room by myself on a microphone, and I'm like, nah, but it's a thing, y'all. Like, I'm telling you. And I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't, if I could help it, I would make it a point to help anyone else who wanted to try to do something like that on their own, because this gets into my my social and political beliefs. I just don't think our voices are out there enough. They're just not, and this is not an attack against the media. It's just the way that society has presented us, and the opportunities that we've been given to speak about who we are, explain our experiences, and I can't think of the last time that I saw just a genuine love story between Black people without any BS in there, like the typical tropes of drug use and fill in the blank, because that's all they think that we're about. So podcasting is an important medium because you get to connect not only like-minded individuals, but you get to expose people and understand that we are far from a monolithic race and culture. We have so many different interests and beliefs, and humor is so varied, man. Like, and I love it. At my core, I am a proud Black person, and this is, to me, a great way to amplify the things that I love about my people. And so, it's not for profit, man. It's just for progress, I think is the best way to say it.
I feel that. Now, another thing that I've noticed about you is that you are really into politics, and you're into politics in the same way that I describe how people from Ohio are into politics, because we're from a swing state.
Yeah.
So, if we feel like if there's anybody whose vote matters, our vote matters. You know what I mean? Because there is a possibility that we could swing it blue or red.
That's true.
And so, what drives your love for politics? Because you have the 3/5 of a podcast, which is now coming out on the Black Astronaut Podcast Network, one of my favorite shows. Hey. And then before, you were doing, weren't you doing another one on Why Not?
Yeah. I was.
I forget the name of that one.
Well, it was essentially a series that we were doing with different political discussions, and it started as something else. I honestly forgot what it was called, to tell you the truth, but it didn't last long, honestly. But yeah, I guess where it comes from You know, the funny short answer is the movie, The Distinguished Gentleman. You remember that movie with Eddie Murphy?
No, but go on.
Most people don't, right? Anybody who does, though, I guess they'll get it. It was when Eddie Murphy was in his heyday, and the whole premise is he's a con man from Florida. He's got the same name as a longtime white politician who suddenly died right before the election. He submits his name to take his place, and he wins off of name recognition alone. And, you know, he goes to D.C. and hilarity ensues. But that was one of those movies that my dad and I loved. And my dad he and my mom are from Birmingham, Alabama. So if you've seen any of the black and white footage from where they grew up, you know, like, for the record, I never want to say that with any superiority, because it was bad for everybody everywhere back then. Like, let me make that clear. But, you know, everything from 4 little girls to just simple rights as drinking out of the same water fountain. That was an issue when they were kids. So he had a different take on politics than I ever will. But seeing that movie, and I remember as a kid, that was literally one of the turning points for him to get more politically involved locally. Not because he wanted to be a con man, but, you know, I think that movie was almost a gateway into him really finding out what he could do to affect the community. So when we were about, you know, my sister's 2.5 years older than me. So I guess when we were about 8, I was 8 and she was 10. You know, we started hosting local politicians when they were running for office. And here in Louisville, we don't have a huge black community, but it's connected. So, you know, a lot of people would come over, the politicians would get their spill. And it was just an interesting thing to see as a kid, because I didn't understand a lot of what they were saying, but I got some of the basic things that they were doing as a human, you know, the interaction, trying to be as jovial and social as possible. And, you know, it was very intriguing. And then, you know, I got a chance to go to a political convention and, you know, saw Bill Clinton speak. And for the record, my mom was kind of giddy to meet Bill Clinton. And I'm like, oh, I kind of get it now. Like, like women really are into that dude. That's crazy. But shout out to my mom on that, which, by the way, this is what you get for not listening. Taking shots at your mom. But I've always had a love for politics since then. And I think, you know, what it's grown into now as a grown man with the family and everything, I'm just tired. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't angry, disappointed. And there's a lot of things that I would love to see. And at the top of my list, believe it or not, is civility, you know? And I'm okay with us having moments of disagreement, but there's just so much more that needs to be done between the two sides. And we just need to make some type of progress. But more so than that, 3/5 and most of my political topics that we talk about on the show come from me making sure that my people are never left behind. Like, anything that I know, I want to make sure that I spread it as far and wide as I can. And I love learning about things as much as anybody too. So I'm not ever trying to position myself as an expert, but this is me just trying to get the discussion going. You know, like we can't just pay attention every election year and then just hope for the best thing to happen. This is a constant engagement, a constant visual that you need to keep on everybody that's involved in any type of politics. So,
yeah, I definitely feel that. So, now that we got those questions out of the way, let's get to the real.
Okay, can't wait.
Okay, so the first question is not going to be that deep, seriously. So the first question that I want to ask, especially since you are a big fan of podcasts, what are the podcasts that you are listening to now, or like your tops, your faves?
Oh my gosh, this is great.
You know what's funny? Who are you giving the recommendation from the Fairy Podfather?
Yeah, from the Fairy. I actually like that better. That's good. So. They actually just left their main show, but the first one I'll mention is Another Round with my homegirl Tracy Clayton and Heaven to God to. I love that show, and it's black women that are allowed to be funny. You just don't see it as much as you should. You know what I'm saying? And Tracy has always been the smartest person in the room, but she's also the goofiest, which is a great combination. So I love her, and she's going to be on BAP pretty soon, so stay tuned. Also, so there's a difference between, you know what, let me just tell the shows, because I can go on all day. I'm sorry. Let me get back to the original question. Because I was going to explain the whole thing between amateur and professional podcasting, but that's another 10 minutes we don't need.
Yeah. We'll be here all night, trust me.
Yeah. I know. I love a lot of podcasters that I personally know. The Potluck Podcast, Unscripted, About Time, OAF Discussions, BTG for President, Open Run. Oh, what's a must listen to whenever I hear it? Man, the Ball and Beats podcast I love. I mentioned Black Is, and the Brothers Layman. The Break is great. Oh man, the In Deep show. Shout out to the DMV crew. They're incredible. Straight Out of Low Cash was one of my first podcasts as well, with Daryl, Ted, now James. I think Javon has moved away, but DJ Ram, all them. Oh man, the Above the Rim podcast is an NBA podcast, so close your ears. But who else? Man, you know what? Let me just pull it up. I was trying to go from memory. I'm sorry. A new one. The Hear Ye podcast. They're really good. What More Can I Say? I enjoy them. Stakes is High. Actually, that was the first show that I did on BAP. I do it for hip hop. That's a dope show. So International Black Podcast, it's a thing. And there's a couple of them that I really love. The Yang Theory podcast, the Unoriginal podcast, are just a couple. Thirst Aid Kit is really good. Code Switch. What's Sam Sanders' show called? It's Been a Minute from NPR is really good. Wait, Don't Tell Me, I love. Brown Ambition, Ball on Bulls. Man, Hannibal Buress has a really good one. The Gray Area, the Cardinal Crunch Zone, NPR Politics. That's how I get a lot of good info. We Come from Queens. I think that is most of my rotation. The Huh Show, but they only come like every couple months. Of course, the Community Experiment, Planet Money, and last one I'll say, House of Carbs. You ever heard of that show before?
No.
It's all about eating. It's all about food. It's really great. I love it. That's from the Bill Simmons Show, which I also love. I lied. The last one, possibly my two favorites, my last two, Politically Reactive with W. Kamau Bell and Harry Konabolu, and Still Processing. I love those two as well.
So guys.
That and on one with Angela Brown too. Yeah. And, I forgot one. Strange Fruit. I'm sorry. Now that was really the last one. And then 3, 2, 1 podcast.
Wait for it.
Is that enough? Because I can keep going.
I mean, hey, the listeners, it's up to them. They can add them all or check them all out. I'm definitely going to re-listen and start flipping through and kind of picking which ones I want to hear out of that. So,
man, I'm telling you, they're all great. They really are.
All right. Now, unlike you, I know what last means. So, last question before I unleash you back into the wild.
Right.
This is your opportunity, as you gave me the opportunity and other people had the opportunity, to tell everyone how you feel about everyone that's on the podcast network.
Ray. So I love them. I love them.
Like, you do know that I have your phone number. We text message each other, so I know what you say about people.
All right, here's the deal. So, I would describe everyone as follow. So we'll start with the newest member, right? Shout out to AJ, Feek's wife. She is. You remember as a kid, you had that cousin that you really loved, but they hated you. You know what I mean?
That cousin for me, her name was Kendra.
Yes, yes.
Why don't you love me?
AJ is our Kendra. Like, she hates us with a passion, but it's cool, man. I think she's good people. When you know, it's not.
From what we can tell.
Yeah. You know, well, I'll just go straight to her husband. Feek is a very interesting podcast dude. In real life, he's a nice dude. But podcast, I'm telling you, man, he enjoys playing the heel, and he's got thick skin, which is awesome. I think that's why I pick with him the most out of everybody, because I know he won't, you know, catch emotions, and hopefully we'll have a good back and forth. But he and Aaron, I'll put CY in there as well. They are the reason why I'm not a bigger nerd. Like, I've never, yeah, no, they are. Like, I've never known people. Listen, they try. Like, if you hear early on when I joined, they were really trying to be nice to my non-nerdisms, but after a while, they're just like, "You suck. Shut up." I'm like, guys, I really want to be a part of your group.
You know what? Yeah. Is that you actually try. Like me, yeah. I'm like, I know what I know, and you know, just fuck y'all. I don't know.
So I'm telling you, man. So I go outside of them for my nerd. Like, I'll say it on air. Rune is the only show I don't listen to because for that reason, because I hate them. They're the ones that's it. But I love them as people. But you know, as far as their nerdom, they can keep that. Oh man, CJ's. Let me tell you why I love CJ. CJ is a teacher through and through because she has subtle ways of keeping everybody in check. Like my man Zaire did a great job of describing her as the shade sniper. Yes, that's accurate. Yeah. Lloyd is really. I don't think Lloyd knows how good she is at podcasting. And that's probably because she's usually leaving the Earth in the rocket ship that she has in her kitchen. And that's easy to understand. She's a part of the Black Astronaut, so she's trying to play the role. That's good. Crystal, I literally have not laughed that hard when we did the year-end wrap-up show. And I can't think of the last time. And that was all genuine. She is naturally funny.
Even when she's not trying.
Yes. I want to emphasize natural on that. All right. Who else? CY. Man, listen. CY is the dude. I don't want to. CY's funny, man. CY's funny. That's it. And Ray, let me tell you. The reason why I'm so close to you, Ray, is that you're still holding on to that 15% of non-nerd that you have. Like, so you're like, it started.
Knuckles bloody.
You started about halfway nerd. Like, you were the blade of nerds at first, right? And then you were like 75. I'd say you're 85 because you're really deep into the video game stuff right now. But you still got a little bit. You know.
Yeah. See, because like the difference between me and CY, I feel like is like, because I feel like between like out of everybody on Room, me and CY are the cool kids of the nerds, which I don't know how to take that, you know.
Yeah. Okay. That's like saying, man, you are the tallest midget I've ever seen. Like, okay. Okay, that's fine.
So the thing is that CY is 100% nerd because he covers it well.
Yeah.
So like he's like he's the kid that you like, you fucking sit with them. What are you doing? where it's me, where it's just like, look, I do what the fuck I want to do. Okay. So I like it. I don't like it. It is what it is. But that's the difference, is that me, I'm just like, hey, if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. See why it's like, you'll just secretly, like one day you'll just turn around and you're like, why you got all these figurines in your room?
What's going on, bro? Like, I don't.
See, my nigga?
I don't even know if that's in style right now, sir. I don't know. But yeah.
The only person you forgot, Aaron.
Oh yeah. So Aaron, he is a. I think of him. Aaron. Okay, here's the thing about Aaron, and Aaron doesn't even know this about him. Aaron legitimately believes that he's like, what's a good way to describe it? As a producer, how would you describe Aaron as a producer? While I'm thinking of the words to do that, 'cause
I mean, what do you mean?
Well, because Aaron enjoys being. If Aaron, okay,
Aaron
if
is definitely the spider in the corner.
Yes, exactly. So if we were Wizard of Oz, he would be Oz behind the curtain, right? Trying to make sure that everything's okay. But then he steps out from behind the curtain, and you're like, get out of here! Like, you're not even. You're not hulking. Like, what are we doing right now? What are we doing, man?
It's like when you find out the Wicked Witch of the West can be defeated with the Dasani. You're like, oh, girl, really?
Like, all the venom is kind of taken out. Nah, that's my guy.
Well, this is fun. This is fun. I can't believe it's over already. But I appreciate you for taking the time out to talk to me. I know you could have been doing anything. You could have been, listing your bourbons in alphabetical order.
Bourbons are wonderful.
Yes. You know what I mean? Or whatever else people from Louisville do.
Hey, man, if we drink,
KFC.
See, no one in Louisville messes with KFC. Shout out to Indies. Shout out to Chicken King. Shout out. I mean, even if you want to go like chains, Popeyes gets more love than KFC. Like, come on, man. Nobody messes with KFC.
Okay, so yeah, well, I appreciate you for talking to me. You could have been doing all types of other Kentucky things, but you're here chatting with me. So tell everybody where they can find you.
Indeed, you can find me on Twitter. Shout out to one of the originals, Kai Love. It's Teddy_D_ on Instagram, Dwight Ted, and we are in these Facebook streets. And the last thing that I will leave everyone with is. Listen, do you want to be with the two people you hear on this call, or do you want to be aligned with Feig and Lloyd? Because Martin is clearly better than Fresh Prince, and let's not even, come on, guys. So,
have you ever really laughed at the Fresh Prince? Like, really laughed at the Fresh Prince?
Like Apache was cool, but it was more of a like, oh yeah, we doing that on TV so everybody can see. It wasn't like ha ha ha. It was just like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just you guys go into the Facebook group, vote, because after this show you'll only have about 48 hours until the next BAP comes out, and we will decide the winner.
We need y'all.
Don't let us down, okay?
Yeah, you can do it.
Don't be that person, okay? If you want to get in contact with me, you can find me all over the internet at This Day Is a Jerk. Let's see, is there anything else that I'm missing?
I think you're killing it.
No, that's it. Well, guys, we'll catch you on the next BAP show, and until then, peace.
Peace.